I must admit, when I was doing that part in my most recent playthrough there, it's on the docks and there is a massive ship in the docks. And I just thought to myself, why have they not took that ship out?
Why is no one on boats? Yeah.
Why are they not living on the water? There's no infected out there. I've never had that thought before until this playthrough. It's like, I'd be on that ship and I'll be sailing around the coast of America and stopping, picking up stuff and engaging with these infective as
little as you could.
As possible. Hi everybody and welcome to High Scores High Stakes Game of the Month Club for May 2025. We are on course here for half of a calendar year of our Game of the Months being on time. Tomahawk, incredible scenes.
Oh, fantastic stuff. This change of the schedule has just made these so much easier. There's like no stress going into these records now. This is what I love to see, and it's nice and it's efficient. We're not shoehorning anything in now, and the content feels organic.
Yes, it feels good. We all know what we're playing, apart from Cardinal, who apparently has no idea what's going on half the time.
Or it's too spooky, or it's one thing or another, isn't it?
Yes, and it's funny you should say that, because I remember last year, was it last? Yeah, season 3 maybe, we played 3 back-to-back horror games in season, and Cardinal started giving us jip for that. And then I just realized that this is the 3rd game of the month in a row with a horror game.
Yeah, sure. We know what we like.
High scores, high horrors. That's on it. Horror scores, horror stakes. That's what we are. Right. Before we start rambling into oblivion here, let's tell everyone what we do here at High Scores, High Stakes. We do a lot of different things. Tomahawk, we are podcasters who wear many, many different hats. When we're wearing our in-season hat, we are a competitive PlayStation podcast where every week we compete against one another in a league table in PlayStation gaming challenges. Every week we pick a new game and we compete in a challenge in that game. The winner of the challenge gets 3 points, second place gets 2 points, third place gets 1 point. Why are we doing this, I hear you ask, oh dear listener? Well, let me tell you, at the end of the 12-week season, whoever is top of the league wins the coveted High Scores High Stakes Cup. It's a beautiful thing. Tomahawk here is our current champion for season 4. And the good news is, because people have been asking, when are we getting back into competitive PlayStation podcasting? Well, dear listeners, the answer to that is next week. Season 5 is a coming, baby. And we are deep in trying to get our runs together for Tomahawk's Champions Choice. It's exciting and infuriating.
No. These Champions Choices are designed to test the not champion, I suppose.
Yeah.
I have lost my patience with this one.
Yeah.
And I'm the flag bearer for this challenge.
And you've clearly been playing the game for more than the 1 week headroom you give me and Cardinal as well. That's all I'm saying right now. But anyway, yes, that's what we do in season. Off season, we do our side quest, which is where we discuss everything PlayStation, everything gaming. And then on the last Monday of every month, which is today, we do Game of the Month Club, where we pick one game, play it for that month, and then come back here and deep dive, review it, spoiler free. So don't panic, listeners. Just don't listen to the first 6 or 7 of these. They're hugely spoilerific.
Massive spoilers.
But start at Tomb Raider. That's when we started doing the non-spoiler version of these reviews. But that's what we do, and that is who we are. Where can you find us, though, if 1 hour-ish of content a week isn't enough to get your High Scores, High Stakes fulfillment? Well, you can find us all over the internet. We are on Twitter. We are everywhere. The easiest place to find out where we are all over the internet is go to highscoreshighstakes.com. There you'll find links to everywhere we are on the internet. And if you fancy supporting us, we also have a new merchandise shop, Tomahawk, where you can buy t-shirts, you can buy mugs, you can buy hats, stickers, the whole heap. So highscoreshighstakes.com is the place to go to find us all over the internet. And if you want to support us, no pressure, don't panic. You don't have to. felt like I had to say that.
Oh yeah. It's not expected, but it's appreciated.
That is it. That is it. So, what are we discussing today, Tomahawk, in Game of the Month? The avid viewer / listener has probably saw the thumbnail. So, let's not labor the point any longer than we have to. Today is the long awaited Game of the Month Club for The Last of Us. The Last of Us Part 1. We're not going to touch the sequel because there's too much to talk about there. We are here to talk about the OG, the 2013 and its remaster, and some of its Part 1 remake as well. Let's just get all three of these things into this podcast so we don't have to come back and do a remastered or a Part 1 episode of this, because I feel like this is a game I mean you have talked about relentlessly throughout the entire life of this podcast.
Yeah.
So let's just get the ball rolling after we take a wee pause here.
Do I need to remind you what is out there?
Okay, Tomahawk, the way we do this is we talk about everything to do with the game. We talk about story in a non-spoiler way. We talk about graphics, we talk about sound, we talk about the development of it. But before we do all of that, everyone wants to know what our histories are with this game. So Tomahawk, tell me, The Last of Us, as if people don't already know this, but let's make it succinct.
Let's keep it in an official Game of the Month capacity. So my history with The Last of Us Part 1 is I owned the PS3 copy of it before I'd even owned a PS3. It was just one of them games I found secondhand for like £5, £10 tops, and was like, gonna get it. I heard it's amazing. I'm then gonna go and source a PlayStation after this, after the fact. Played through it, then got the PS4 with the remaster, and then I think we've labored the point over the last 110 episodes or so. I've owned every iteration of Last of Us Part 1. It's just a game that sits fondly. I think it's the one game that hooked me back into Sony and PlayStation as a whole, really.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. My story is kind of similar to that, but not exactly the same. I, as everyone already knows, was an Xbox 360 gamer, primarily in the seventh generation of consoles. And then I saw Uncharted 2, and that was the game that sort of piqued my interest in the PlayStation 3, but I never really got around to buying a PlayStation 3 until The Last of Us released.
Yeah.
And I did, like yourself, I sourced a PlayStation 3 from Mr. John Sherry, alumni of the podcast. He had bought the PlayStation 3 Super Slim, I want to say. So I threw him a message and lowballed an offer to buy his original fat PlayStation 3. I think I paid 40 quid for that PlayStation 3 with an extra controller. It was a bargain.
Unneeded, but yeah.
Absolute bargain, mate. And then, of course, I went back and was like, here, if you finish with The Last of Us, because I'd really like to play it.
Yeah.
And that's how that worked. But yeah, I'm like you. I've owned every version of The Last of Us. We are part of the problem. This is why Sony keeps releasing this game,
Keeps doing this,
because we keep on buying it, because it is just one of those games that once you play it, you'll understand exactly why people who love this game. It's a really good game. Without spoiling this episode too much.
It's like to say, if this is the first time you've listened to a High Scores High Stakes episode, we also did the challenge of our permadeath run in season 1 as well. So I think it was quite nice to actually honor the game in that way.
Yeah.
To give it a little bit of a challenge and a little bit of something that you wouldn't normally see.
Yeah.
In our side of things anyway.
Yeah, we did try to get Sherry onto this because he often calls this game his favorite game of all time. We did try to get him on, but obviously we couldn't get it to work with everyone's schedules. So it is what it is. But yeah, The Last of Us, that is our histories with it. So let's get into the deep dive review. Tomahawk, I love this part of the Game of the Month Club. I'm not going to lie, because we all play these games and it gives us something to talk about. Don't get me wrong, but I also like looking into the development of these games and just basically how were they made and what sort of issues did the developer have when making this.
Yeah.
And the sad news is I could find no issues with this game during its development. There are no mega fun stories here. There is certain things I didn't know about this game. So basically, The Last of Us work on this game basically began straight after Uncharted 2 released in 2009, and Naughty Dog, for the first time ever, and to my knowledge, the only time ever, split into two
Yeah.
teams.
Which for Naughty Dog, it is pretty much usually one sole project into the next project, and it's a group collective, really. So to see that they had split the team and went, right, one's going to do Uncharted 3, I think one went into that,
Uncharted
and then
3.
the others, the nomads, we'll say, went
The
into
A-team.
into the Last of Us development then.
Yeah, which is really funny. I mean, I know they split into two teams, but I didn't realize this was the first time they'd ever done it. And I think Neil Druckmann this week has, in an interview, said that the team has split into two again. So
for Intergalactic has a
Yeah.
A team, and then they have an unreleased B team. Yeah,
an unannounced game yet. So that's really interesting. Other things I find interesting about the development of this was just the inspirations behind The Last of Us. Obviously, there's lots and lots and lots of post-apocalyptic books. The big one being The Road,
yeah.
which was made into, was it a Hugo Mortensen movie? Wasn't it?
It was Vigo. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's not one I've seen actually, but
It's
hear
really good.
It's incredible. Yeah,
it's really good. It's based on the book of that. It's also based on a book that I actually have read, and it's called City of Thieves. And City of Thieves is this historical fiction. It's about two Jews trying to survive like the Nazi siege of Leningrad in World War II. But basically, the main thrust of the story is they are starving. Both of these guys, their parents have been disappeared by the KGB, and they are starving, and they are looking very specifically for half a dozen eggs. So it's just a story of these two going through Leningrad during the Nazi siege, trying to survive the Russian soldiers and the Nazi soldiers, and just meeting this wacky crowd of people throughout their journey. It's a really good book. It is a really good book, and it's not very long. If you're not a reader, give it a go. But also a movie that I didn't realize inspired this was No Country for Old Men. No Country for Old Men.
I can see why now. Yeah,
was so basically Neil Druckmann in an interview way back when said that his original vision for Joel was, I can't remember the name of the character in the movie, but Josh Brolin's character.
Yeah, I see it now.
Yeah. So he said he wanted Joel to be like that stoic, sort of cool under pressure, never panicking sort of character. And then when they hired, what's his name? I've got this name wrong before this podcast. No. The voice actor for Joel.
Oh, Troy Baker. Yes.
Troy Baker. He decided to give Joel a bit more emotions in his responses to certain things and all that sort of business. But yeah, so that's really it. That's really it for like really interesting facts. There's other things I didn't know about. So that was the movie and sort of literature behind the inspiration behind it. The video game inspiration behind The Last of Us was BioShock Infinite, which is something that I thought was really strange. I was like, BioShock Infinite, how does that inspired it? So basically,
I can figure it, like in terms of the two companions and how they work, like their relationship. I kind of can maybe see it that way, and it's that sort of father-daughter figure that they seem to allude to in BioShock and in Last of Us as well. So that's really interesting. It's not a game I would have thought that is in the echelon of like Naughty Dog's thinking, really.
Yeah, I mean, they both came out in the same year. So, but it was in an interview with like Gotaku or something like that way back in the day, where they said that BioShock was like a major inspiration, basically because you go to a location that has been decimated by something, and they never really tell you what that something was, but like they don't explicitly tell you, but they will give you clues of what's happened through subtext and sort of environmental storytelling, which is something we mentioned last week in this podcast. We talked about environmental storytelling. So the BioShock series rather than just BioShock Infinite. But yeah, they said, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Neil Druckmann. It was the other creative director. Said that, you know, it was they had hit this point in video games where BioShock had come out and told this great story, and they at Naughty Dog sat down around a table and went, do you want to know what? We've seen enough really good stories in movies. We've seen lots of really good stories in books. Now we have to start seeing these great stories being told in video games.
Yeah.
And the whole reason they don't tell you exactly where the infection has come from and anything like that in the game, and why they don't tell you what all these. So you go through in Bioshock, in Last of Us, you go to all these sort of collapsed civilization areas, and it doesn't tell you what's happened. It doesn't tell you where all these marauders come from. It doesn't tell you anything of Bill's backstory. But if you look hard enough, you'll see clues and you'll get little notes. And they basically just wanted to tell a story with a ambiguous ending, so that the conversation about this game continues long after the credits
as
roll.
opposed to just the narrative of the game. They're developing this lore, and you can bring your own conclusions and stuff as and where the characters and stuff. Because we'll get into it further down the line, but I think it's when you get to the collapsed building at the start and you meet the Fedra soldiers, and it's basically like they tell you their wee stories in notebook form, and tries to get you to attach to these characters and what happened to them, and obviously it doesn't end well for some of them.
Yeah. So the themes of this game are human perseverance and human relationships. So they went to great lengths to say that the infected are not the antagonist of the story, and they went to great lengths even during pre-release. They said these are not zombies; they are infected. Obviously, the infection was inspired by Planet Earth, believe it or not. Richard Attenborough BBC documentary. Yeah, there was an episode apparently on cordyceps and that, and they went, "Oh,
I did see that one. I have seen that cordyceps episode." But like, even slight tangent on that, they captured that brilliantly in the TV show without highlighting it as foreboding cordyceps. They do it as this like complete hypothetical documentary in the 60s. They're all having a smoke in the studio, and then they go,
James Nesbitt. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, we're not really going to talk about the TV show as much, but I think that was like a hauntingly beautiful drawback to the cordyceps and where it is, and like it's purely a hypothetical, and then it like flashes forward to the present day when the world's been ravaged by it.
Yeah, that is one of the greatest cold opens to a TV show I've ever seen. It is haunting and it's great. And James Nesbitt, what a performance he put in for that 5-minute segment of the series. Incredible. But here's some other things I didn't know, Tomahawk, about this. So when they originally drafted the story, Ellie was originally Joel's biological daughter. You aware of that?
Okay. I thought I remember hearing rumblings about that, but obviously knowing what we know about the game, don't think it would work. I don't think it would carry emotionally as it does throughout. So,
which is exactly why they dropped that.
They changed it.
Yeah. They said that if she was his biological daughter, it sort of limited the scope of their character development throughout the entire narrative. So it made way more sense for them to be hoisted together against their wills so that their relationship can grow throughout the story of the game. And here's the last wee tidbit of information I thought was pretty cool, and one that I don't really see how it would have worked, but it's an interesting idea. Tess was originally the main antagonist of The Last of Us.
Okay.
Like, when I read this, I thought I confused Marlene and Tess, and I was like, she's not the leader of the Fireflies. So basically the original storyline for this game was basically it plays out exactly like it did in the game, where Joel's daughter dies, flash forward 20 years. And the bit where you go to the shipyard to get your guns back.
Yes.
So apparently the original storyline was that plays out exactly the same until that point. And then Joel shoots Tess in the leg, takes the guns, and bumps into Marlene, who then sends him
with Ellie.
And basically Tess is
she like haunts you across the country. Then okay, no, I did hear this actually. I think they changed it because it made Joel too chaotic evil or something like that, as opposed to his they didn't want that to sully his like redemption arc or his emotional character arc that they did have planned for him. So it's funny as you start talking about it, I'm like, that doesn't ring a bell, and then I'm like, oh no, that actually does. It's interesting in an alternate universe how that would play out as a story, to be honest.
It is that original story that gives the game its format for its story, which is summer, autumn, winter, spring. So it's just coming around full circle. But I thought it was like, that's really quite an interesting idea. Although I really like Tessa's character, and to have to
class,
hate her would be wild. And as you said, it will make Joel too evil a character to really grow a bond with. I like the way they dealt with that in the game. I feel it draws you closer to his character.
Yeah. Well, they highlight that at the very start, that Joel has spent that 20-year gap doing pretty heinous things. And I think when we pick up the narrative, he's very much a man who has kind of wanted to give that up. And then Ellie is that narrative drive to be better.
To change his ways. He's the ghost of Christmas future. But that's it for the development story of The Last of Us. There was no controversies. There was no big, massive disasters. There was just a seemingly constant redrafting of the story. Seems to be the big throughput here of his development. It was 2009 and 2013. It had a 3 and a bit year development cycle, and then it was done with, because if memory serves me right, Uncharted 2 came out in October 2009. This came out in June or July 2013, which is a heck of a turnaround time.
Oh, wow.
For half a team. But yeah, that brings us on to the main meat of this episode, which is the deep dive review of the Last of Us. Tomahawk's favorite game and favorite guest, and name that game, The Last of Us. Do you want to get the ball rolling? What do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about the characters? Do you want to talk about the story? Do you want to talk about the graphics?
The story probably is the one. It's the big bulk of the game. Anyway, it's the main aspect, the main thing about it. Like it's the big selling point of this, wasn't it? Going into
absolutely.
It's
the thing everyone talks about,
and it was like, I always see this as like the PlayStation 3's kind of swan song.
It is, yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. So I think this one had to go hard, and man, we get such a cold open. Like we talked about the cold opening sort of in the TV show. This one takes it step further, and then some. It properly goes, we're just going to thrust you into it, but we're going to do it as context clues. We're going to start to show you news articles. Then it's going to start to be physically in the outside world, and then we're going to bring that threat straight into the player's environment.
Yeah,
and then you're forced to take a back seat, well, quite literally, when you're in the car, and Joel and Tommy are just in this panic trying to escape the start of the outbreak, and then you're just thrust straight into the middle of the chaos, and it's reaction more than anything. You're fully finding out what's happening as the characters are, and I think that's brilliant, because what they could have easily done is just go a text crawl.
Yeah. I really like the way the prologue to this game is sort of set out, because, as you said, it casts a very wide net at the start. It's just there are text messages coming in, but the grand scheme of things, the story is told through newspapers and little flyers and things like that, stay out of the cities. And then you have the news reports where it all seems very, very, very far away. But as the prologue goes, that net closes in around the player until it's right on top of you, and it's all so reactive. It's a really, really, really dynamic start to any game. That cold opening in the house is very slow and very deliberate, and then you have the incident with the neighbor, and then you have getting into the car, and you go into the city, and the city is, just as you said, absolute chaos, and it looks incredible in part one. The lighting upgrade system just looks spectacular here. And it goes, and you think this is obviously the main drive of the story, but I don't think I certainly wasn't ready for that cold open in 2013. It hit hard in 2013 when I was just childless, and it hit hard. But now that I have kids, that cold opening hit me
it hits harder in 2025, doesn't it? I think I said this in our tournament episodes there. There's never a way that doesn't hit you in some emotional tier.
Mhm.
Every time I play, I'm actually genuinely thinking, oh, I'm probably long overdue another Last of Us run. And it's like, I don't want to have to go through that again in
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
first 20 minutes of gameplay. And I'm like, but it sets the scene. It sets like Joel's character, like, like we get the event. I mean, like at this point, if you haven't played it part one by now, you should have figured out. Love has already spoiled it anyway.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
like you're stopped by the Fedra soldier just at the town border, and he's then told, "Nah, get rid of them."
Yeah. And he does it against his will because he says, "Are you sure?" on the radio.
That's right. Yeah. So
It's
there's
like
this
what?
moment of he's not just a mindless drone. He has this like level of humanity, but he's just following orders, and then yeah, we lose Sarah pretty much off the bat, and
Straight
it's
away.
so shocking and unexpected. And I thought like it's going to be a heavy narrative, but I didn't expect it to be that heavy that
Yeah.
quick. And that kind of just sets Joel up to be this like disheveled, grumpy man who has trust issues for the next 20 years.
Yes, yes. And then, yeah, it flashes forward 20 years. The infection is totally decimated. Well, America. But if we look back at the old sort of pre-release marketing of it, it is the planet. The planet is wiped out because they give us pictures of Paris and London
Yeah.
and Moscow and all this here sort of business. So it is the entire planet. But yeah, and then the game kicks off and it's all very the first when we did our speed run on when we did our permadeath run of this in season 1 or 2, whenever it was, we said the opening is very, 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 very slow, and there would be no content for what we were doing with it, and that stands true.
Yeah.
But what the opening, that prologue, and then into 20 years later, sets up the world of The Last of Us like incredibly well.
Oh yeah.
Because obviously, 20 years later, it kicks you into I think it's called the quarantine zone. I think that's just all it's
That's it.
called.
Yeah, just the QZs, I think. And then it's set up. Fedra have them set up across the country. Basically, all the major cities are now, or anyone that hasn't majorly fallen, are just these new QZs now. So, yeah, you're just thrown in, and where there's unsavory characters, crime thrives, and Joel has seemed to have thrived.
Yeah.
The last 20 years.
And it also paints this really dystopian picture of what the world would or could look like should something like this ever happen, where, yes, there's military, Fedra in this case, but the military, for obvious reasons, it's martial law. Because, you're walking through the streets as you're going towards the gate with Tess, and there's 4 people dragged out of a building because they had sneaked out, and they forcibly test them for infection, and 3 of them are clear, 1 of them is not, and they just shoot them in the head, and just like right there in front of you. And it's one of those moments that you could miss if you're just looking to play the game, but if you're exploring that little opening area, there's a lot of environmental storytelling going on there. They clearly didn't want us to trust Fedra at all. They wanted to paint them as the big baddies. And then, you hear whisperings from like the bystanders about the Fireflies. Did you hear what the Fireflies did? I hear they bombed someone. You get to the gate and then bang, there's the Fedra gets attacked by that bomb, and then it's incredible.
And that's it. Like even the intro to the Fireflies as well. We don't get that in gameplay as such. The actual intro to the Fireflies we get is all in the opening credits.
Mm-hmm.
So while that 20 years later is sort of occurring, and we're getting the music playing and the devolution of civilization, essentially, it's all the news articles that are saying that like there's been bombings, there's been political assassinations, and the Fireflies claim responsibility for this. And then I think that's how the credits end. Is you have the voice of Marlene say, "When you're lost in the darkness, look for the light." So you're set up with these characters, and all you've been told about them is voiceover work.
Yeah.
So you're aware of them, and then by the time it kicks in, and then they get to the QZs, and then the first gate blows up, and it's a Firefly attack, presumably.
Well, yeah, it is. It is a Firefly attack because the whole opening sort of prologue-y sort of part up until you get out of the city, there's a lot of Firefly attacks going on because you follow the smoke in order to get to the Capitol building and stuff. But beyond just the Fireflies, which is like the main sort of conflict of the world, you walk past bystanders and they're talking about life in the QZ. So you walk past this couple, and they're talking about, oh, I've just been given outside detail for the next week,
yeah.
and all this here business, where clearly this is a utilitarian sort of society where you do what you're told. Your
You work for
job
food,
is
yeah.
your job is to work whatever you're told to work, and you get paid with rations. and it is such a, it's not original at all. I mean, this has been explored in many, many, many movies and many books, but it is super effective here because it's forcing you to engage with it. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you're walking past these people, and I did in this most recent playthrough for myself, just stopping and listening to what people were saying. As you walk past, sort of get absorbed into the world of The Last of Us a wee bit more than I have done since my very first playthrough. But yeah, so it basically kicks off you and your partner, Tess, who's an absolutely brilliant character. She is a female Joel. She's just this middle-aged woman who has seen the downfall of humanity and has adjusted her behavior patterns to fit in with the new world. They are smugglers. They smuggle things into the QZ and they smuggle things out of the QZ.
Yeah.
And they have been betrayed by a former partner, I believe, who has smuggled in guns with them and then stolen them to sell them behind their back, and they want their guns back.
Yeah, gosh darn Robert. Like, is it? Yeah, it just sets this up as like, here's a quick revenge job.
Yeah.
And then, like, we're not thrown into any infected. We're not thrown into anything like that. It's literally just, we did a bad thing, but he's done a worse thing. So let's go, and if we have to kill him, we'll kill him. And let's go get these guns sold so we can eat, basically.
Yeah. I must admit, when I was doing that part in my most recent playthrough there, it's on the docks and there is a massive ship in the docks. And I just thought to myself, why have they not took that ship out?
Why is no one on boats? Yeah.
Why are they not living on the water? There's no infected out there. I've never had that thought before until this playthrough. It's like, I'd be on that ship and I'll be sailing around the coast of America and stopping, picking up stuff and engaging with these infective
as little as you could.
As possible.
But no, it's great because as we're learning about like the Fireflies, we then do find Robert. We then realize that Robert has actually sold the guns to the Fireflies, and their strength has been pretty much misinformed.
They're decimated. Yeah,
they're pretty much on the verge of extinction. So we meet Marlene, who is like, "I'll get you your guns, but you need to do a job for me," basically. And I think Tess and Joel's desperation basically puts them in this situation of, well, we can't really afford to say no because these guns will cost, they'll be our livelihood, basically.
Yeah,
and that's where we are brought to meet Ellie.
And it's a great piece of storytelling, that, because they never explain what the guns were for. They never explain what the guns were for, who they were for, what the intention was with the guns. We can presume it's like an attempted uprising of the QZ, but it's never explained. And to be honest, it doesn't need explained. No. But yeah, Marlene then introduces us to Ellie and tells us that we have to take her to a medical facility that is conveniently placed in the west of America, so we have to travel across the entire country in order to bring her to where she's going.
Oh no! At this point, it's take her to the Capitol building. Take her to the Capitol building. The Firefly B team will escort her the rest of the way. Basically, that's all you had to do is leave her from the QZ. You can sneak back in. We'll give you your guns back, and then some, and make a tidy profit along the way. So.
Yeah, and what I like most about this sort of opening up until the Capitol building is its lore building. It explains nothing in great detail, but it sets up the game world incredibly well. It tells you how the infection is spread. Saliva, of course, it's saliva, so bites and all that sort of good stuff. Scratches don't do it. There is a document in the game that says a scratch is not enough. It has to be the exchange of saliva and spores.
Breathing in of spores. Yeah.
Breathing in of spores. Don't be doing that. You'll get infected. And the infection takes 1 to 2 days to turn you into an infected. And then it explains that the longer you are infected, the more you will mutate and all this here business. It does this game is incredible. I mean, I know I talked about this last week. The environmental storytelling in this game is utterly incredible. It is
It's nowhere where to look though as well, because as you say, you can go to that first building when it's Tess and Ellie, and you are it's in the collapsed building. You see the
Yeah.
Fedra soldier, and it's basically he's been torn to shreds. But then if you go through all the other documentation, you can find that they have like all the categorization. So you have your runners, your and then the tanks sort of after that up until I think then there's a page torn out for like at this point we don't know what the bloaters are, but there's like a page torn out.
Yeah.
And so it leaves like this next classification of infected completely a mystery at this point in time. So yeah, it's, as long as you know where to look, and as long as you have that sort of wherewithal to be investigating every nook and cranny, you learn so
That's
much
it.
about the world.
There's so much lore in there, and it's placed in areas where it's quite hard to miss some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So it is, but it is missable. It's totally missable. There's quite a bit of it stuck behind shiv doors and other sort of business. But yeah, so that sets us up lovely. So it tells us how the infection is spread, and it says, "Go forth and bring her to the Fireflies." Things happen along the way. We get to the Capitol building. Everyone's dead. Everyone's dead.
Because that would be easy, wouldn't it?
It'd be a really short game if they were all alive. I'm like, yeah, we'll take her. Thank you very much. Good day to you, sir. Here's your guns. But yeah, and then that's when the game kicks off. Then it becomes clear that we have to travel across America in order to deliver this girl to the Fireflies. Because, spoiler, not a spoiler, Ellie cannot get infected. She has been bitten. And she hasn't even turned a little bit. So she
at this point, she's weeks apart. She's weeks from initial bite as well. Yeah, it's great because like the whole mystery is why are the Fireflies wanting kids moved now? What's changed? Why are they doing this? And then Tess always just goes, "It's just a job. Don't worry about it." So yeah, it's such a shift even for Joel and Tess to take this job. But again, they're desperate. They want cash for guns, basically.
Yeah. And the story just goes from there. We travel across America over the course of one calendar year. It starts in summer, ends in spring. But it's just this incredible journey with a cast of incredible characters. Obviously, you have Ellie and Joel. We have Tess. Tess, I think, really underrated character. She is grizzled. She has been broken. She has seen some stuff. She has done stuff that she's not proud of. She says that herself at the start of the game. You know, we've done things we're not proud of. But the essence of her character is she is, or seems to be, an optimist. Because when she finds out about Ellie's condition, she's the one who drives Joel.
Joel was willing just to ditch her and go back to the QZ, and Tess is the one who says, "No, you have to.
We have
to see it to the end." Yeah.
What if this is true? I think is her words. What if this is true? And then we have Marlene, who I think's a fine character. She's not in it very much.
No, she sets it up and finishes it off.
She serves a purpose,
as a narrative. I think her character's brilliant. What I will give a big shout out to Bill, because we get to Bill just towards the later of the first half of the game.
Fairly sharp. No, Bill's Town is really early. This is something that took me by surprise as well in this most recent playthrough. His town is really the third level.
Third or fourth. It's like third to fourth chapters, isn't it? Yeah. It's actually much earlier than you think.
Yeah, way earlier. Bill's character is incredible.
He's such a narcissist. Not a narcissist, but he's such a negative character, and is just like, he survived on his own in this pokey little town by himself, just rigging it with explosives and death traps and all that kind of stuff. So when Ellie comes, it is just a big kind of like, why is there a kid here?
Yeah.
I think there was one line in particular where Ellie is like, they're talking about getting a vehicle because they're at this point in their mission where they need a car. They're not going to be able to cover much more distance on foot, or it's just going to be unfeasible to do it on foot. And Ellie goes, "Why don't you just fix one of these cars?" And then Bill's like, "Duh, why didn't I think about doing that earlier?"
yeah. Bill's a great character. He is paranoid as all heck. But he is extremely systematic. He is, as you said, he's rigged the town up with bombs, and he has jobs to do. he talks about reinforcing the fences all the time. I know I need to reinforce this fence, this fence, this fence. And he talks a lot. He's a really good character. He does have really good reasons for not wanting people in his town, which he goes into not in great detail, but there's a lot of contextual clues about.
Frank, I want to say
Yes.
him and
Yeah.
Frank have a falling out, and then as you go through the town to the school, the battery, you go to look for the car battery because the car's been plowed into the school, and you find out that it's already been stripped. Like, it's I always get frustrated when I play games like this where it's like, let's take you from point A to point B, but point A literally is completely irrelevant now, so we're just gonna have to circle back on ourselves.
Yeah.
This does it really, really well, and especially if you miss these clues in the storytelling, this is lost on you completely because you get to Frank's house at the very end of this this chapter, and it's like Frank leaves a note that says, "I know what you're doing. I took the battery."
Yeah.
And it just is like a big, just is like a big F you to Bill.
A massive F you to Bill, and Bill's not happy about it, and he remains unhappy about it. Why did you leave without spoiling that storyline? Because that storyline is one of the greatest storylines in this game. It is just brilliant, and there's so many contextual clues. As you said, you pick up little bits of conversation. There's a couple of optional conversations you can have with Bill that sort of fills in a little more of those gaps. And you kind of do have a feeling that it's going to go where it's going to go. I know in an interview Druckmann said that he wanted to leave that aspect of Bill more ambiguous. But then he said when he was talking to the voice actor, whose name completely escapes me at the minute, he says, "No, I think we should make this a bit more overt. People should know why would it be
why he doesn't trust people."
Yeah. So they said they changed some of his lines just on the fly. How do you want to do this? What do you want to say? And just let him say what he wants to say and that sort of thing. I think it's a really, really, really well told wee side story, and it's not the only side story that's really well told here. Because if we're talking about characters, I want to talk about. I think it's Ishi, who's a character that's not in the game at all. It's just a contextual sort of environmental storytelling character.
I think I know where we're at this point, but
we're in the sewers. We're in the sewers.
Yes. So this is when we meet. Their names are going to escape me now, but they're two brothers, Henry and Sam. And you learn the story of this underground society, and it's all told through the notes.
It's all notes and pictures and environmental storytelling throughout this. So yeah, basically you meet these other two survivors, Sam and Henry. They're brothers, you said, and you decide, well, they're in a situation similar to us because there's
they're being hunted down by the marauders.
Yeah, and they just want to escape the city that they're in, Pittsburgh. They want to escape Pittsburgh and decide, I'm with my younger brother who's the same age as your daughter. Let's work together and get out here together because we both need to get out. And you go into the sewers, and there was a literal underground society there. And one of the characters that lived there, that no longer lives there, is a character called Ishi.
Because it starts on the boat, doesn't it? And then they find their way through. Like, you follow this whole story without anyone actually being there. Yes, I remember it well. And then that section alone completely, man, because it forces you to split the characters. Split at one point. You split the party when a door doesn't open, so you're stuck with Henry. Or Sam, you're stuck with Sam.
You're stuck with
Henry
Sam.
Has to go with Ellie. Now the AI doesn't massively change, really, but
not at all.
Still gives you that sense of like, oh god, now I've got to look after someone else's kid.
We're powerless here. We had to look after someone else's kid, and it's also this part of the game where you realize that The Last of Us isn't interested in giving you stories that have a happy ending. It is emotional gut punch after emotional gut punch after emotional gut punch.
Yeah.
Even with these characters we've never met, he seems to have been perhaps a cop in the pre-infection life, but was now the sort of security for this underground society. And there's all these pictures on the wall that children have drawn of Ishi. He's like a superhero. There's all these notes about how good Ishi is and all the things he does and how that their society just wouldn't function without him doing what he does. And then you go into, just as you said, you split up and you go into like a primary school, and it's just carnage, and the notes that you pick up in this room are just brutal, like brutal. And it is such a strange feeling to have in a video game where it's characters talking about characters that aren't in this game. You never see them, you never meet them, but the story here is just so brilliantly portrayed through the environment, through everything in the environment, and through little incidental details that are here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
And you follow this narrative from a literal starting point to a finish point in what, half an hour? And it's just one of those stories in this game that has just completely stuck with me because it feels real. Like they feel like real people. They don't feel like someone has sat down and written a script and written all these notes with like a professional background. It just, everything in this game, from what every character says to one another to the notes left behind. A lot of time, I get it. A lot of the times criticism is thrown at voice memos in games or these notes where it's like, where would they get the time to write this?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, in this world, it makes sense for people to make written histories, rather than say Resident Evil makes no sense for someone to go, I am trapped in this room and they're breaking in through the door. Why are you writing that? Run.
At that point, yeah. Whereas like in the post-apocalypse, it's very much you want to continue. It's the continuation of history and the continuation of like the written word and the stories that are told. Like it makes sense there. And when you find that, you do get that story, you do get that sense, and then you find out kind of in the worst possible way what's happened, that someone's got infected and has like ravaged the camp basically. And then that section ends in basically a boss horde.
No, that's not the end. Yeah, kind of. You fight the horde and you have to escape
through it, and then
you get stuck.
The sign at the front of the door says, "Don't enter, infected inside," and everyone was just like, "Well, why couldn't you have told us that on the other side?"
The other side, because they didn't know the other side existed. It's just brilliant. It's just, I think that sewer section just is a microcosm for everything that makes The Last of Us so good. And it's just everything positive about The Last of Us. It was, for me, I think I've talked about this before in this podcast, where you're playing a video game and then something happens, or you get to a certain point in the story where it hits that you're potentially playing an all-time great game.
Yeah.
And for me, the first time I played through the sewers, this is the point where I went, oh, this isn't an ordinary game. This is special. Yeah. And it's still a really special part of this game. It's one of the strongest parts of this game. And it ends up on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, where you have the sniper hunkered down.
That's it as well, because like even how we meet Henry and Sam is so well set up. Like we're in the car and you're on the freeway, and Joel spots that there's a barricade, and he's like, he debates turning around and losing time, but then he's like, no, we may as well go through the city. And this is how we sort of meet the Marauders. They fake an injury,
the classic.
And then Ellie is like, oh, should we help him? And Joel's like, no. And then as we go through the section, it's only sort of in the downtime between fights that Joel then sort of says, no, I've been on both sides of that. I've been the faker and I've been in the car, basically. So you learn that basically these people are going to do whatever it takes for resource as well. And then we come across Henry and Sam, who are refusing to go along with, I think, the Marauders, or they're just part of a group who have been pinned down.
They I think they had to come in to get resources and they've been spotted, and they're just trying to get back out.
What I will say about like each section, we're introduced, like every section always seems to introduce us to a new character, or a third and a fourth character as well, and no character overstays their welcome. You their mini sections have these like lovely start points and a lovely conclusion. I say a lovely conclusion. They're seldom a lovely conclusion, but it's like their narrative is tied off quite nicely.
Yeah, pretty much every season has supporting characters that will see out their story arc within that one season, and it's just Ellie and Joel are just the connecting tissue through all of these people, and
Yeah.
we're just vicariously witnessing these people live their different lives. It makes it very clear. It's funny you should say that about Henry and Sam. When you first meet them, it makes it very, very, very clear that these two are not built for
the world
for
that
this
in.
world that they
Yeah.
find themselves in, because I think at one point you first meet them, don't they want to cook food? And Joel's like, "You're not like no fires, boys."
Yeah, they're so naive in how they do it, and even like Sam, the first thing he wants to do is go to a toy store,
Go to the toy shop and pick up a toy, and he wants a toy, and his brother says no because it makes noise. Don't be silly. But it's just a wonderful sort of dichotomy between Henry and Sam, and I do believe this is the reason these two are in it, is they reflect Joel and Ellie so much, and they're there as a sort of cautionary tale about what could happen to these two if they don't play their hands,
they drop their guard,
perfectly.
or if they did. Yeah.
And it's just a horrendous end to that little story section. It is brutal. But
It's one of them moments. It's like that moment in like a TV show when it has like their light springy end credits, and then when something bad happens, and it ends on that note. They don't play the light springy jingle. They like leave it a solemn
silence.
So this is one of the first times I think we leave a chapter. It goes into like the next transition.
That's a big jump.
In complete silence.
Mm-hmm.
I think it starts the next chapter in complete silence as well. I think when we get to the dam.
Yeah.
It has this like somber tone that carries through from an entire season. So they've traveled for at least another 3 months at this point.
Well, we don't know exactly how much, but yeah, we've went from summer into autumn when it comes to the dam, which I think is it's a brilliant way of sort of emphasizing the impact of what's just happened to Henry and Sam. Is you go from summer, which is bright primary colors, everything seems really hopeful and all that sort of good stuff, and then all of a sudden we're in autumn or fall to our American listeners, and the color palette has completely changed. Obviously we're on a hydropower dam. It's gray and everything's muted, and this is where the story tries to take a turn here, and it makes perfect sense for the turn that they want to push here. But obviously it doesn't work out the way everything intends for it. Tommy, Joel's brother, really great character, man. Tommy's an underrated character in this game. He is switched on. He has his ducks in a row. He has taken this dam, fortified it, and is working on getting the electricity back on so he can power the city in behind it.
Because he was as we go through the story, he was a Firefly. He had a relationship with Marlene, like in a professional sense. He didn't like how the Fireflies were going, so he split from them, and then basically founded. This is where we get to Jackson, early Jackson. So we go through the missions of turning the dam on, and he's learning how hydropower works, and that reunion is short-lived when marauders again come into camp. This is one of the, like, as we're talking about this, you kind of now remember that seldom do we ever have to deal with hordes of infected. It's always people. It's always just people. The infected are very much like the bits in between, and they're the like things to be frightful of.
Basically, they don't play any major part in the story other than this is a post-apocalyptic world. But there's no point in the story where the infected are playing a key role in driving the plot forward at all. It's always human beings. It's always humans who are driving this plot forward. It's the conflict between humans. It's the relationships between humans, and it's just humans just trying to do human things. We're horrible. We're horrible things. But no, the Tommy section I think is really good. It's at the start of the game. I think Ellie asked Joel about his brother, who's Tommy, and he says, "Oh, he's my brother. We don't really talk. Why? What happened? We're not talking about this."
Joel's quite shut off in terms of that with Ellie. He's very still at this point as well. They have a few moments of humanity between each other. They start to develop a bit of a rapport, but they still are both trying to withhold information from each other. Like even at this point, Joel is still he's going to try and leave Ellie in Jackson and convince Tommy to finish the job
to
because
take
he
her
knows
to
the Fireflies. Yeah. And Ellie catches wind of this and books it.
Runs off
Yeah.
to the farmhouse, which is another great section
It's
of this
just like,
game.
again, another, like, as a narrative point, she's like, I think, what is it Ellie says in the cabin? Everyone I've ever loved or cared about has left me.
Yeah.
And this is the point, I think, where Ellie actually, like, emotionally breaks to Joel and sees Joel as this, like, figure of adornment. And Joel is still like, no, because of everything that has happened with Sarah. And I think she points out because she's figured out who Sarah is and what's happened to Sarah. And then I think that's when Joel hits you with the "you're treading on some mighty thin ice."
Great scene,
Such a great line. Such a great line. It's such a great, like, emotional investment in the two characters. And then again, it's just shelved by like marauders. Because
there's another great line in that part, isn't it? Is like, what is it? "You're not my daughter, and I'm sure as hell not your dad." It's like so cold, man.
Like,
he is so cold. You understand completely. There's moments in this game as you're playing it, you see him softening to her, but just that one line, that one reference to Sarah, completely snaps him back
derails
into
it, the whole relationship. Yeah.
Do not talk about this. And it's really funny because leaving Bill's town, they have that really cool conversation about comic books, and there's the music in the car and all this here sort of business. And that's where she learns he wanted to be a musician. He wanted to be a country singer.
Yeah.
And all this here sort of stuff. And Ellie is always asking questions because Ellie's 14 years of age. She has never known this world without the infection. And she's asking all these questions about the old world. What was this? What was this? What was this? What did you do in the old world before you had to do all this here stuff? And there is some really cracking conversations that happens between the two of them. And the optional sort of conversations as well are also really, really worth looking for and getting. But that scene in the farmhouse, man, is just, it's another emotional gut punch because I don't know about you and the people listening to this, but I just really, from the off, I just thought Ellie was a great character.
I think she had great sass and she had just great, like this is the world and we just have to get on with it. But she's so like inquisitive of what came before, basically.
Yeah.
And I think she kind of knows what her purpose is, but doesn't fully understand the gravity of it.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't really come into play until I think Tommy then gives you word about where they were based.
Where they are.
We get to the university campus.
Yeah.
And then this is like, I think, the most part where Ellie and Joel are sort of on the same page. Now we've had our little...
Yeah, they're a proper team at this point of the game now. So they are... It's one of those things that when I was playing this, and I don't know if it has anything to do with what happens to Sarah at the start of the game, but when I met Ellie, even in my first playthrough, I just instantly really liked this character, and I wanted Joel to like her as much as I did.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Absolutely. I think transposing my feelings onto...
I think you're trying to force yourself, because if you take such a liking to this character, you kind of wonder, why is the protagonist of this game
does he hate her?
And why is it taken until like essentially the start of Act 3? The end of Act 2, really.
Second half of Act 2, I would say, yeah. The second half of Act 2, I would say this is. But we go to the uni, and the uni is an incredible sort of environment to be in. It's not an environment that's ever really explored in Hollywood other than frat house movies.
Yeah.
This is not a frat house movie at all. But I thought the university was a really interesting sort of environment. As I say, you don't see it very often. And it was, again, I think I said this during the Phasmo episode where I was talking about Tanglewood feeling like a real place.
The
it didn't.
university feels like feels
Oh,
real in the world, and you could imagine it existing in the real world.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a weird thing. A lot of the environments of this, and I know we've thrown shade at Naughty Dog before for making combat arena levels. The Last of Us kind of avoids it a lot of the time. Like, there is a lot of waist high walls, but it's sort of explained in the game, whereas these are like barriers to stop people from getting
Yeah,
through
yeah.
and this sort of stuff. It makes sense. But the university and Billstown as well feel like places that would exist in the world. Yes, it has its combat arenas, like at the end of the school, and the gym is a combat arena.
Yeah, absolutely. The university campus feels like a massive puzzle level because you're not just like navigating your way to where the Fireflies are based at this point, but you're having to like do like the electricity. You're then having to find the horse. You have to go get the horse. You have to move things. You have to like lift Ellie up into other spots for
Yeah.
her to throw things down. So the entire area takes like the entire tone of the game takes this like shift away. It feels like it's sort of thrust into a bit of an Uncharted platforming
Yeah, it does.
section,
It does
and you're
feel
not
like,
really having to deal with infected as much, maybe in like one spore room, maybe. But for the most part,
yes,
it's like, oh, this is a little bit of puzzle. We're going to get a little bit of like character bonding. And
and we do.
we do, yes. We get to the bloody end of this. I forget it. I'm like, oh no, I know exactly what happens here because we get to the Fireflies again and there's no sign. They've all cleared up and packed out and they have made their way to Salt Lake.
So yeah, they're away to Salt Lake City. So you get to the laboratory where they were conducting research into like possible treatments for the infection and all that sort of good stuff. But this is the section that has the giraffes, right? Over the football pitch.
Just before, yeah. So as you're navigating, and then the giraffes are there, and it's that lovely moment where you can actually like you can just stay there. You don't have to
You don't
move
have
the
to
narrative
move.
on. Yeah, you could literally interact,
The giraffes
and
move on, but
the giraffes move on, but you don't necessarily have to move on from that spot. And then the monkeys are there, and they're kind of causing havoc in the labs as well.
the test subject
I
monkeys, of
used
course.
it. I used it in my photo challenge for last season, and there's a moment where the camera slightly pulls out, and it's all the animals on the football pitch, and they're all kind of just like that herd mentality.
Yeah, just doing animal
And
things.
there's that optional moment where you can just like lean on the fence
Yeah,
and watch the world go by, and without the character saying anything, there's like this sort of peace and harmony, which completely gets like juxtaposed for like the chaos that kind of happens 5 minutes more than
yeah.
this moment here, because it starts off pretty chill. Like you find marauders just as like dusk is about to break,
Yeah.
and it's the scramble from the top lab basically, and then you're just kind of jumped by randoms at the start.
Yeah.
And that I just first time coming, I didn't see that coming at all. It was like,
No, nor did I.
oh,
Nor
it's
did
just
I.
it's just an encounter, and it's like, nope, Joel's been impaled. We now have to carry Joel across to the horses, and we have to like amble our way through, sort of half controlling Ellie, half controlling Joel at the same time.
Yeah, it's a really, really exceptionally handled moment, that, because I didn't see it coming either, because I genuinely thought he's dead. And then that's the end of the chapter, really. It's the end of this.
Straight into winter, and it's
second
into
act.
winter.
We're into winter, and this is where the game sort of pulls its final party act, which is we're now Ellie.
Oh yeah.
And we are hunting for deer, and we have no idea the situation with Joel. It was this moment I was like, there's no way he's dead.
And they wouldn't kill him in like the start of Act 3, just as like because I always look at these things like how a TV show would do. You do your penultimate episode is like the full peak narrative, and then your finale is always the cool down and kind of the fallout of what's happened in the penultimate. Whereas like I thought it's too early to do anything bad to Joel. He still has a bit of an arc to finish off, but we're thrust into Ellie. Ellie has to kind of figure things out on the fly,
and this is where we meet Another
Like, this
the
is
character of the
But
chapter.
it's so
David.
good. Like, David's brought in purely to like split deer for resources, and you play a section with him, and you have to like, he's quite a good AI to have as well. I think his character, his head's on a swivel the whole time, and he's really, really good at dealing with infected in that battle arena.
Yep.
And then when we deal with that, and it's the revelation when they're
It's
kind of just chewing, they're literally just chewing the fat. There still isn't a level of trust between them, despite having gone through these hordes of infected. And he then talks about how there was a grey-haired man and a teenage girl, and they just killed friends of theirs. And it's just this realization that you're like, oh like,
no.
yeah, like that was like, it's too perfect. It was too perfect an opportunity when you had this like NPC who was willing to help you and give you resource, and then the switch flips.
Yeah.
And this sinister nature just kind of takes a hold of the scene.
Yeah, it's another one of those emotional gut punches, because David's character throughout the Woodmill section is very calm, very charming,
Controlled, and
there's a bit where his guys want to attack Ellie. He's like, no, go get her what she wants, and we'll take her deer. And you go and get the medicine and bring it back. And then, as you say, you fight the hordes, and then it's like a switch is just turned in him, and he becomes this horrific human being. And it's Nolan North.
No, yeah, I would never have known this.
No.
Like, in the moment, it's such a change in his like acting portfolio. We'll
his
say
voice betrayal here is, I would say, it's his best work. It doesn't sound like Nolan North gets a lot of stick from video game fans. He just does the Nolan North voice. No, he does not. No, he does not. And it's just, this is where it takes a really dark turn, the
like,
narrative.
I think this is where I questioned like the actual game title, The Last of Us, and this is what I thought was really, really clever about this, because firstly it was like, this is the last of us, we're the last of humanity. And then when we find out like David and David's motives and David's like what's going on in
What he
David's
does.
civilization and what he does, it's very much The Last of Us as the chaotic good. If we're going to sort of talk about the scale of things, where these guys are like unlawful evil, is sort of how I would think of they do what they think is right by any means to an
necessary.
But it's just how he's portrayed and how he kind of does it is so like sinister and vile,
and just so, he's aggressive in every way a human being can be aggressive. He is just sleeked. He is sly. He builds rapport and trust, and then totally abuses it.
Yeah,
totally abuses it. He's just a great character, and this section is just, it's brilliant. It is brilliant. Especially just how the plan unfolds, where it goes to next, and then it culminates in really the only boss fight in this game.
It's such a good boss fight as well, because
boss fight. It's Naughty Dog's best boss fight, I would say, they've ever created.
Yeah, because it makes that listening mode a real prolific thing to use, and then even then it works for one like turn essentially, and then David can mask his footprints
the same way we can,
and the same way that we can. He can then use the smoke to his advantage as well, and he'll start to throw. I think he can throw things at certain, if you leave the fight to run long enough, and then you have to really think on the fly. I think there is a lot of time where I've just bum rushed him and hope for the best.
It's the best tactic.
9 times out of 10 it doesn't work, but I think it's really clever. Like, that scene is, you're trying to escape the town, but it intercuts really well with Joel gaining consciousness, barely realizing that Ellie hasn't come back, and David sent a patrol to go and take care of Joel, and then Joel kind of just, in this lucid sense, is just gone feral. Basically, this is the first time you see Joel kind of lose control.
Yeah.
And if it's the first time you see him, he's actually like, he's got a purpose and a drive and character. He's off to defend the basically the only other person he's got left on the earth.
Yeah, and it's great. It's just brilliant. It takes a really dark turn at the end, and then the game goes straight into spring, and then this is the final sort of couple of chapters. Spring's a really short season in this game. So it is, and I'm not even going to talk about the first level, but the last level is obviously the lab, the hospital.
My green screen fell over, and yeah, there we are. That was incredible.
That was fun. I thought you took a jumper off. Is the green screen it fell?
Literally fell over. So yeah, we get to the hospital, and it is just like a few stealth elements. Again, this is another, like, we're dealing with the fallout of David, so it's very somber. It's very kind of, we're into the end game.
Yeah,
and you just kind of, there's this refusal to discuss the emotion of what's sort of happened here. We're just going to go, right, we're going to get to the hospital, everything's going to be done, you're going to save the world. And then you do get to, with a few sort of stealthy maneuverings.
You meet Marlene, effectively.
And Marlene basically goes, right, there you are, off you go, there's your guns, we're going to make sure Ellie's okay. And then Joel's like, what do you mean make sure she's okay? And then this is where the revelation is that they can make a cure, but it comes at the cost of Ellie's life, basically.
Yeah, they're going to perform brain surgery.
Yeah.
And she ain't going to make it through the brain surgery. And then this is when Joel loses all control. And this is where, like, post-apocalyptic Joel really, really, really comes out. It's no different from any other combat section of this game, but the stakes really make it feel totally different from the rest of the game. And it really isn't. There's not, you don't even kill that many people in this section, maybe 15, 16, I think it is. But it feels like a lot more because the stakes are so high, and the game does this really good feeling. There's no timer. It doesn't go, you have to get to this room in the next 7 minutes.
Yeah, so many minutes, yeah.
But it feels like there's
an urgency.
There's a real urgency behind it. And it might be the music, it might be just the setting, it might just be where the story has brought us to this point, but you have to fight through the entire hospital, and you have to fight through the remnants of the Fireflies, which are, if they existed in the real world, they would be a designated terrorist group.
That's it. It's interesting because it's the first time that's a mechanic in the game. Like, we've kind of talked about it throughout the story there. Like, it's this cover-based stealth system throughout the entire game, and it's all based on like field of vision, and they'll react based on movement and what they can or can't see from you. This is the first time in the entire game where Joel kills a Firefly, gets a weapon. So we don't have any equipment anymore at this point in the game, and this is the first time in the game we're basically now being chased down, if I remember correctly, the entire way through the hospital. For the most part, yes, at least when you take the gun, the gunshots go off, and then the first 5 or 6 soldiers come to you, so you could probably still have a shootout with them effectively.
I mean, that also happens in Pittsburgh after the car.
Oh, it's kind of it's forced combat, really. But in that one, you're funneled into a corner, whereas like I think you have the option of, if you stay hidden for a minute, they'll not lose interest, but they'll go into sentry mode.
Yeah, they go into their sentry mode. This section's brilliant, and it brings the game to its conclusion that we won't spoil here. But but it ends back in Jackson, and then you have that great ambiguous ending, which is just incredible. It's
that Ellie asks like Joel to promise everything, like what he says is true, and he goes kind of like as plain faced as anything. He goes, yeah, I promise that everything I've said is true, and that it lingers on Ellie for a minute too uncomfortably for me, for her then to just go okay, and we cut to black. Like the fact that it just is a hard cut to black, like I didn't really know how to process that ending at the time.
Yeah, I still don't.
And the credits, and then we roll the credits, and then we get back to the window, main menu, like the actual like open window main menu, like, and that's the full plot of this done. It was awesome.
It's an incredible game. Yeah, the ending is just brilliant. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ending because you don't know how to take it. You don't know if she believes him. You don't know what she knows. It's just left so ambiguously and so open to interpretation. And the original intention was to drive conversation. Well, I can tell you right now, Naughty Dog succeeded in every measure of that because the conversation about that game went on until The Last of Us Part 2 released,
Yeah.
which was 7 years later. Just utterly incredible game. It's an incredible game. It ain't perfect though. I want to talk about some things that I do not like about The Last of Us. All right.
Okay.
Number one, clickers, blind, can't see. Game goes to great lengths to tell you that the clickers will not see you and they only respond to light or to sound. Sorry. So I've been playing through The Last of Us Part 1 and I have noticed on several occasions that if there is a clicker in a room and you throw a brick or a bottle as a distraction, the clicker will run to where the bottle smashed. And then, as if by chance, every single time, if they go to the bottle where the bottle smashes and they don't kill anything, they will just happen to walk exactly where you are every single time. It makes stealth more difficult than what it has to be. And I know,
yeah.
and I get they want you to engage with the infected. At no point in this game is it possible through normal gameplay to totally avoid the infected because they are patrolling areas where it just makes it impossible to sneak past them. It is, you can do it in some occasions, but most of the time you just can't.
It's forced encounters by a lot of the time.
Yeah, a lot of most of the time. And that's really it. I think, that, ironically enough, the infected are the weakest part of this game.
That would be a fair assumption. I think that's not a bad shout. To be fair, I think they've always sort of pointed to the game that the infected are the infected because they're infected.
Yeah. Another thing,
people are the main problem. Yeah.
Another thing I want to add to this as well, and it was totally rectified by the sequel, and to a lesser extent, it was fixed in the Left Behind DLC, which is an incredible piece of DLC. Play the main game, then play Left Behind if you haven't already. It explains how Ellie found out she was immune, but you never in Last of Us Part 1. There's never a section of the game where you're fighting human and infected at the same time. Not once. You don't.
No.
You can try to think about it. You don't ever. They are completely segmented. You will be fighting the infected, and then you'll fight humans, and then you'll fight infected, and then you're fighting humans. Until the Left Behind DLC, when you near the end of the DLC, when you're sneaking through the vents and you come down into the clothes shop, you can stay in the vent and you can throw there's 2 or 3 soldiers, throw a bottle down, you can bring a clickers on them and let them kill each other.
Yeah, I was thinking there is definitely, I thought there was going to be a moment there, but I'm genuinely thinking of Last of Us Part 2. I think
Part 2 has it all over the place.
Yeah, especially like
the hotel stuff.
Seraphites and all the infected. Yeah, you can bring them on top of each other if you do want to clear a room. But no, in terms of the Part 1,
it just doesn't exist.
Segmented really well.
Yeah. And for me, segmenting them like that kind of at points in this game kind of makes it feel like, and I think Ghost Kai said this, where it feels like you're just going from combat encounter to combat encounter to combat encounter. Like, don't get me wrong, the combat's great. I love the combat in this game. In Part 1, the combat's incredible. Part 2, the combat's incredible as well. But it kind of, I can see why someone
same.
I would like a bit more like the university type levels where it was more than just you were doing more than just progressing the story. Whereas a parts of this, it feels like you're just progressing a story to get to the next beat, to get to the next thing. And I get that's the point. You want to see what's happening next, but it feels like the game funnels you a wee bit too much. Forcing combat on you, not really giving you any options to sneak around it, despite stealth being one of its major sort of game mechanics.
Narratives, yeah.
It doesn't really let you use stealth. The second one does. I mean, all these problems are fixed in the sequel.
The second one massively promotes stealth, whereas this one is like, oh, here's stealth. You go past the first bit of cover,
you're seen,
and you're instantly seen by it's the runners. The runners are the worst. They're the most perceptive AI villain in this entire game, we'll say.
Yeah. And another thing as well is there is a section in this game where stalkers exist.
Not in part 1, no.
Yeah, no, there is. But I've never seen it. They are in this game. They are in this game.
So well hidden then.
They are in this game. Because the note you pick up in the museum tells you that there's runners, there's clickers, there's stalkers. And then, as you say, the last bit's ripped out, but you can see there's something written there. They are in this game, apparently. I've never seen them.
I feel compelled now to go and
I'm on a hunt for them. I haven't
replay
found them yet.
now, because if I remember correctly, like tangentially speaking about Last of Us Part 2, that was a brand new mechanic that they brought in. There's like half lucid, intelligent, infected. Really, they were like that. I
think they must have reworked them to be distinctive. But let's I think that's what they did with part 2. I think they just reworked them rather than introduced them, because that apparently they're there.
Because it's interesting because they kept it quite restrained. Really, they could have easily done like what Left 4 Dead, Back 4 Blood kind of do. You have your base, you have your speedy infected, then you have like a tank infected, then you have like your clicker. Essentially, they have like the runners, the clickers, and the bloaters, essentially the ones that we have to deal with throughout the entire game. And the bloaters, handily enough, are very few and far between, because they are
brutal.
They're hard. They are the proper like ceiling bad guy in this game.
Yeah. So
the clickers are just
clickers are they're a pain. You can deal with them as long as there's no runners. If the runners complicate things
in the town, it's when you're going through Bill and you're going through the graveyard from the church, and the section is just nothing but clickers.
Yep.
And you can't just sneak past them because they do just clash over each other.
You can somewhat sneak past them in The Last of Us Part 1 in the graveyard, but one thing I've noticed, and I don't recall this in the original, you can correct me if I'm wrong, in Part 1 they have introduced puddles where if you step in a puddle, they will hear that and run straight to the puddle, which is great. I've just done a search. The stalkers are in Part 1 extensively, apparently. They are in Part 1. They are in the Left Behind DLC as well. And they appear in the hotel basement and the sewers. So they are described as they are the runners who try to sort of flank you. So you're in a fight and they come in from behind is what, but I've never seen them. They're not like they are in Part 2 where they actively hide. But they're there.
So it seems like a massive, it seems like a mechanic rework for Part 2. Yeah,
I think so. Just make them a bit more distinctive from running. But no, do you have any sort of things you don't like about The Last of Us? I think I've given a few either, but they're not major complaints at all.
No, I think it's more very similar in terms of that. I think sometimes the skill ceiling sometimes for the clickers can be just a bit overwhelming and kind of can kill the fun in any attempt that you play on it. The one thing there is one genuine thing I don't like about this game, and it's not even like a bad way. Did you ever watch the behind the scenes of this where they filmed the hospital sequence in the motion capture?
Yes.
And then they went to Marlene, or Neil Druckmann goes to Marlene, who is musically, she's Broadway trained, I believe. And they were like, right, we need to run this one more take. I just hate the fact that we don't have this Last of Us the musical in an actual motion captured. We have the motion captured piece, but we don't have the actual like in-game footage piece.
yeah. But yeah,
that's about it. I think the game pretty much hits every beat, and then even in the remakes and the reworks and stuff as well, they don't add an awful lot, they don't change an awful lot, but they do really well as we've progressed The Last of Us to The Last of Us Part 1 remake and all that lovely stuff. They've captured the essence and kept the essence all the way through it.
Yeah. I mean, if someone said to me, should I play The Last of Us on PlayStation 3? My answer to that is no.
Yeah.
Because it runs pretty poorly on the PlayStation 3. It's 30 frames per second, but it's not steady at all. There's parts of that game where, especially in the school and Billstown, where it will struggle a wee bit. The best way to play the original sort of The Last of Us is The Last of Us Remastered on PlayStation 4. It's brilliant there. But if you want to have the best The Last of Us experience, then it's part 1 for me.
Yeah, I think so. Especially because they dropped it for free on the PlayStation Plus catalog.
It won't be there forever because they do tend to keep taking them off, annually. Basically, it'll be there until about October because it took a place of the Horizon Zero Dawn, Forbidden West, didn't it? So if you want to play it on some PlayStation Plus, play it before Halloween or play it for Halloween. But I would say The Last of Us Part 1 is probably the best way to play The Last of Us. It completely reworked the engine from The Last of Us Part 2, but the better thing that comes with that is the completely reworked combat. The combat in The Last of Us Part 1 is head and shoulders better than the original one. The original one's very limited. It's effective and it's good. You have melee, you have bricks, you have bottles, you have guns,
shivs and stuff as well.
Yeah. Whereas in part 1, you just have way more options on how you use them, and you can link them all together and that sort of stuff. The Last of Us is a great game. One thing I want to talk about though, and I think it's criminal that we are this far into this recording and we haven't mentioned the soundtrack.
The music is incredible. I know part 2 takes it to a whole new level, but your man Santiago Centinelo, I think you call him,
Santa Lala or La 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 La.
Just phenomenal. It's just such a different approach. We talk, music seems to be a very prolific part of The Last of Us, even in the narrative.
Yeah.
Joel talks about how I want to be a country singer, and even when they're in the car radio, it's like, oh, this is before my time, but it's still a great tune.
Yes.
They take these lovely comforts, and then even in the soundtrack as well, it's like old man Spanish guitar is the best way I can describe it.
It's so minimalist. It's literally
but it's so juxtaposed to the narrative and the setting and everything, but it just sets a tone throughout.
Yeah, agreed. The music is outstanding. There isn't an awful lot of music in the gameplay, but they pick their moments where the music will swell and subside exceptionally well. It sounds a really weird compliment to give a game. It's beautifully directed. It's beautifully directed. It's perfectly directed. Everything hits the way it should. There's nothing missed. There's no points to the story I was like, oh, that's a bit of a miss there. I think everything that they've attempted to achieve with The Last of Us, they achieved it. In
on a musical
spades.
sense as well. You take the actual direction, you can tell this is done on a soundstage with professional actors and professional voice actors as well, and the bits in between are kind of, the game engine and the game mechanics are kind of woven really well into
exceptionally
the acting side of it as well. Just further putting onto the sound and the music of the game as well. Even that muffling of the in-game audio when you go into listen mode.
Yes,
you are focused on what you're focused on and everything else becomes white noise nearly. Even when it comes to the detection meter, it's not like in Uncharted where it's the little yellow triangle. It's the music kind of swells, and then when you hear that pop or that chime when you've been spotted, it's just really, really clever and you could nearly mistake that to just in-world noise.
And it's so good. There's so much. The soundscape of this game is so good. Even the noise. You go into a new area and you'll hear the infected, but you can tell what type of infected you're dealing with based purely on the noises they make.
Yeah,
the clicker has that distinctive noise, and the runners just have the howling pain. Is the best way to describe it. The runners sound like they are in constant
agony,
pain, and it's brilliant. I mean, the stalkers sound incredible, and the what do you call them? The big boys, bloaters. Their signs are just frightening. This, I mean,
that first encounter I'll never forget the first ever encounter with the bloater. I will always remember the 695th encounter with the bloater
yeah. There's just so many great parts of this game. We could talk about it for years. We have been in this podcast talking about this game for years. I feel that The Last of Us, well, it's definitively, isn't it, the greatest PlayStation franchise of all time?
I mean, it's canon on the Only Gaming podcast, I believe. It was discussed at great length.
It's brilliant. It's PlayStation. It's Naughty Dog's best work ever.
Yeah,
it
doesn't get as many. It doesn't get as many remakes, reworks, adaptations. It doesn't get as much like push as it gets if it doesn't be backed up by all the accolades that this game has and deserves, really.
Yeah. It's a funny wee game. We have always talked about how good. We spent all this episode talking about the story and how good the story is and how it never misses. It's a game that never lets you feel any like denouement, as they say. There is none in this game. Every story ends horrifically bad.
There isn't a happy ending. Like you feel as if like it throws like life isn't always perfect. There isn't a start, a middle, and an end. It's just a start and a middle and perpetual middle, and it's eternal sadness. But they find ways to just deal with the sadness.
That's it. But it never forgets that it's a video game. Either, and that's the thing with The Last of Us. It is all about the story, but the story means nothing without the great gameplay mechanics that intersperse those. It would be nothing without the game. And there's some games out there that have great storytelling. Like Metal Gear Solid 4 tells a great story, but the gameplay parts don't really play any part in that story, whereas this requires you to play. The gameplay is required reading almost. It's like going to a university lecture. You have to play those parts, and the payoff is all those things you've seen and done now makes sense in the context of the Last of Us world. It's a great game. It's a great story. It is Naughty Dog's best work. It's PlayStation's best work, isn't it? Let's give us let's put this on the high scores, high stakes tier list. I'm giving it an S tier.
It's all day long. It's an S tier. I don't think we live in a world where this can be anything.
No,
less than an S tier.
I wouldn't want to live in a world without The Last of Us, to be quite honest. I wouldn't want to live in The Last of Us world, though. I don't think I'm built for that. But it is what it is. But
it's really funny though, because like obviously we record these episodes in the past.
What?
If you're listening to this at time of release, this is actually the same day as The Last of Us season 2 finale.
It is.
How about that for synergy?
This game is just great. I mean, we can talk about how good everything is in this game. We can talk about all the different performances from every single voice actor, all the great work the composer did, the great work the level designers made. Just everything comes together. This is the pinnacle of AAA games design, and the perfect way of sending the PlayStation 3 off.
It was the ultimate, like, this is, I think they knew how good they were gonna have it, but I don't even think even Naughty Dog could have anticipated how, 2013 this came out. We're talking about the part 1 still 12 years later, and part 1 is just as every bit as good. And we could talking about part 2 in 12 or 13 years with the same sort of gravitas as part 1. Like, it's just a phenomenal series. It's just, the lore is so dense and rich. Yeah, great game. Can't fault it, really.
Yeah,
as much as we try.
Yeah, that is it. Do you know what else we can't fault, Tomahawk? The wrap-up section, man. Let's get there.
Cool.
Don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
And that is it, Tomahawk. Another game of the month done, all wrapped up, and in time for the end of May, and also in time, coincidentally enough, with the season finale of The Last of Us Season 2, the TV show, available now in all good satellite providers. Great game. I would love to talk more about it, but time
We'll pick that
is
up next week. Sure.
time is fleeting, so it is. Time is fleeting. Let's just do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll draw a line under this one. So if you listen to this at the start, you don't have to listen now. Just skip forward 2 minutes and then listen to me say bye in a funny way. But if 1 hour ish of high scores, high stakes isn't enough to fill your week, go to highstakes.com and follow us on Twitter, on X, on everywhere we are all over the internet. If you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, do that now as well. It really helps us out and helps get more eyes on this. We also have merchandise at highstakes.com. Just click on merch and I'll bring you straight to our shop. There you can buy a whole variety of things. And if it's your first time listening to this and you've enjoyed it, please tell a family member or a friend. If you've been listening to us for a while and you enjoy us, do the same. Tell a family member. Tell a friend who you think will enjoy the podcast. Tell everyone. If you get the bus to work, just tell everyone, here, high scores, high stakes. Here's a wee link there. Go for it, Pigman.
Be that stranger on the bus. Do it.
Weird guy who tells everyone about a podcast. And with all that being said, Tomahawk, S tier, another member of the S tier club, The Last of Us. And this won't be the last of us. We will be back next Monday with the start of season 5.
Yay, big excite.
Tomahawk break the cycle? Can he do it back to back? I'm not going to let him. Cardinal's not going to let him. We're going to do everything in our power to stop him. So season 5 starts next week. Hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, hit any button that's in front of you right now. Make sure you're following us and make sure you're here next Monday, 8 a.m. GMT for episode 1 of season 5. I'll be there. Tomahawk will be there. Make sure you're there too. So until next Monday, I've been Mr. Love Lover. This has been High Scores, High Stakes. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Monday for season 5. Love y'all. Bye.
Bye.